Hi cadets, Dr. Boyce here. So I wanted to go over with you again a little bit more on signal detection theory. So let's start by taking this at a real straightforward level. Right? The whole basis around signal detection theory is that in life you are going to have signals, which are the things you want to detect, and noise, which is going to interfere with your ability to detect those things, right? So, for example, if you are trying to detect whether a light is green or not, it may be easy in a clear day to determine that that light is green. But then again, on other days, it would be very challenging in fog and darkness to be able to determine, well, did that light actually change? Especially if the light itself is diminished. My point is that most of the decisions that we make in life are not clear cut. But really, it comes down to there was a stimulus present. Did you see it or didn't you? So we have 4 outcomes that we could potentially have, right? So the first one, and let's look at this on 2 levels. So on this side, we're seeing whether the signal was there or not there. Okay? Don't overcomplicate this. This is a black or white situation. Was the signal there or was the signal not there? Okay? And then on the other side of it, so this is signal. And then this is response. So the response would be, did you see it or did you not see it? Okay? So there are 4 outcomes, right? And the first outcome is, hey, that signal was present and I saw it. So that's considered a hit. That's a positive outcome. Then what could also happen is that the signal was present, i.e. that green light was there, but you didn't see it. And that's known as a miss, right? The third outcome is that the signal is not there, but you say you see it, and that's a false alarm. And the fourth outcome is that the signal is not there, and you don't see it, and that's a correct rejection. So I think the easiest way that I can put it to you guys is that there are 2 positive outcomes, aka a hit and a correct rejection, or there are 2 negative outcomes or error-prone outcomes. In this case, you might call them a mistake, which are misses and false alarms. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, how do I decide when the signal is close or when I'm not sure, right? Under conditions of uncertainty, how do I decide which way I'm going to go? And this is where it comes into decision criteria. So your decision criteria is basically, are you willing to be more liberal about your decision making, i.e. saying that you do see it, or are you being more conservative about your decision making? More likely to say that you don't see it. Well, the problem is whichever angle you take, you have to compensate whether you're willing to take more false alarms or whether you're willing to take more misses. So, let's say, for example, that you're trying to be more liberal, i.e. more likely to get it correct. In this case, what is going to happen is, yes, if you're willing to say that more things are there, say a TSA scenario, then you're going to get more hits, right? But you will also get more mistakes because you are trying to bias your decision making such that it is more important for you to get that hit than it is for you to miss something and make a mistake. So false alarms, you would rather take that false alarm and say that, there was something in that bag and there wasn't, than you would to miss that weapon that might be in that bag. So that's the liberal part of it, right? So if you're more conservative, then it's going to be more along the lines of you are going to say no to things. So you are not going to want a false alarm. An example of this would be a nuclear strike, right? You are willing to say no as many times as you can because you don't want to say yes when there is a great cost at stake for that false alarm. So you are willing to take, but in doing that, when you're saying no to everything, you are going to miss some of the times when you probably should have said that it was there, right? So, what it really comes down to is, what is more valuable to you? You can't have everything, right? So are you willing to accept more false alarms? Or are you willing to accept more misses? And in research, when you have false alarms, right, this is called a type 1 error. Whereas when you're willing to have more misses, this is called a type 2 error. But the general purpose of this discussion is to tell you that in addition to the outcomes, you are going to have a criterion which is going to shift based on your bias of whether or not that content in that gray area is going to go to one side or the other. So, just going over this some more, there's no concept of, always under this threshold, I am going to respond this way. Rather, it is, you have to adjust it based on the level of uncertainty and make some trade-offs as to what you're willing to accept. Because you're going to have noise. Even in a completely silent environment, there's going to be noise there. So you have to be willing to accept either way. So you have in this case, you have your signal, right? And then you have your decision criteria, right? So what are you going to decide, based on your expertise, your expectations, how fatigued you are, what are the consequences of your actions? This is going to impact how you decide things. However, you also have to think about the level of noise. If it's very, very different between the signal and the noise, then it's going to be very easy for you to detect your signal versus noise. It's going to be very, very easy for you to detect me as a civilian versus one of your other officers as a military personnel, right? But it may be very difficult or more difficult to be able to determine between, people wearing similar colored uniforms, whether you are going to be able to determine whether they are civilian whether they need to be saluted or not. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit. And that's going to impact your response outcomes. So as I said, it all comes down to your decision criteria, right? If you say yes to almost everything, aka you have a low criterion, then it's going to increase your false alarms. If you have a high criterion, where you're going to say no to almost everything, then that's going to increase your chances of miss. And this is a trade-off that you're going to have to make from situation to situation, right? And this could be, mainly it comes down to consequences. Which is more important? Accounting for, making sure that you say yes, and then therefore increasing the false alarms, but avoiding the misses, or making sure you say no, which is decreasing the false alarms, but increasing the misses. Alright, so I showed this to you guys in class, but I wanted to go through it with you again, right? So in this case, you really have to think about cost versus rewards, right? So, if you have a low decision criterion, right, and you are more concerned about making sure that you don't miss anything, aka get chewed out, then you're more willing to accept the false alarm than you are to take the miss, right? But if you were really concerned about the false alarm, then you would have a high threshold, but that would mean that you would also miss some things. So the message that I'm trying to get across to you here is that in addition to the outcomes, hit, false alarm, miss, correct rejection, the criterion based on which is more important at the moment not to do, either to miss or to false alarm, will adjust how you decide to make your decision. So just think about it in terms of, is it more important that you don't miss, or is it more important that you don't have a false alarm? And with that, I hope that this helps illuminate some of this for you, and I will see you guys in class. Have a good evening.